Snow swallowed the highway whole. Headlights cut through the blizzard like ghost eyes. Then 3 little girls appeared from the white void, holding each other, frost clinging to their lashes. The smallest whispered through cracked lips, "Please, our mama's hurt." That night the Hells Angels met courage in its purest form. Welcome to EM Facts. Before we start this story, tell us where in the world you are watching from. And if you believe kindness should never die, please subscribe and help us keep stories like this alive. The wind screamed like it had lost someone it loved. The Hells Angels Ravenridge Chapter rode through it anyway. Engines rumbling low, tires grinding over frozen asphalt. They weren't chasing trouble tonight, just trying to reach a shelter before the storm sealed the mountain. Calder Rook Maddox, their road captain, lifted his visor. Snow stung his face like nails. Then the convoy slowed. Through the storm haze, 3 small figures stumbled onto the road, barefoot, wrapped in thin jackets, one carrying the other. Rook braked so hard his rear wheel skidded sideways. The smallest girl, no older than 5, pressed her palms together. "Please," she whispered, "our mama's hurt." Rook's breath fogged his visor. He killed his engine and pulled off his gloves. "Where's your mama?" he asked gently. The eldest pointed toward the forest, a thin black scar against white infinity. "In the cabin. She's not waking up." The blizzard howled louder, as if daring them to follow. The bikers left their bikes idling, red taillights flickering through snow like heartbeats. Rook lifted the youngest girl into his arms, wrapping her in his leather jacket. They trudged into the forest, boots sinking deep. The world was silent, except for the wind and the steady crunch of their steps. The cabin appeared half-buried under snowdrifts, one window glowing faint amber. Rook kicked the door once. It barely held. Inside, the air reeked of wood smoke and cold metal. A woman lay on the floor, pale, shivering, her wrists bruised and wrapped in torn cloth. "Jesus," muttered Blaze, the sergeant-at-arms. "She's freezing to death." Rook knelt beside her. Her pulse was faint but steady. Beside her, a small military badge dulled by rust. The letters barely visible. UN Field Medic Corps, 2003. He turned to the girls. "What happened to your mama?" The eldest hesitated. "She doesn't talk about it. She just wakes up screaming sometimes." Rook built a fire, while the others wrapped the woman in blankets. Heat slowly pushed the frost from her cheeks. She stirred, eyes flickering open, glassy but defiant. "Who are you?" she rasped. "Friends," Rook said softly. "Your girls found us." She tried to sit but winced, clutching her shoulder. Faded burn scars crawled up her arm, precise, patterned, like something deliberate. "They said someone might come back," she whispered. "Who?" Blaze asked. She looked at the window as if seeing another world. "Men from the camp. They used to make us listen. When the others screamed, the fire popped." The girls huddled closer. Rook noticed the room as sparse but disciplined. A folded map, medical kits, an old radio, half dismantled. This woman wasn't helpless. "She'd been surviving, waiting, ma'am," he said quietly. "What's your name?" She hesitated. Elara Myles." Rook froze. He knew that name, from a story told in the barracks of Kandahar years ago. Rook's hands trembled. "Elara Myles," he repeated. "You served in Bosnia, didn't you?" She looked up, startled. "How do you know that?" Rook's throat tightened. "Because one of my brothers, Mason Hale, said a medic named Myles pulled him out of a torture pit with her bare hands. He said she disappeared after the camp fell." Elara blinked, tears mixing with melted snow. "Mason, he lived." "Because of you." She pressed her palms to her eyes, shaking. "They burned the camp. We thought everyone died. I ran with the children. I never looked back." The eldest daughter clung to her. "Mama, please don't cry." Rook turned to Blaze. "We're not leaving her here." But outside, engines echoed through the wind, not theirs. Headlights flared in the trees, too high for bikes, too slow for trucks. Rook's instincts went cold. "Get down," he whispered. "Whoever's out there." They're looking for her. The fire dimmed as the sound grew nearer. Crunching snow, muffled voices, the click of metal. Rook motioned to the others. "Lights out." The cabin fell into darkness. Elara's breathing quickened. "It's them," she whispered. "They're back." "Who?" Rook asked. "The mercenaries. The ones who owned the camp. They tracked us once before." Blaze slid a knife from his boot. The girls whimpered. Rook crouched by the window, catching a flash of movement. Men in white parkas, rifles slung, scanning with headlamps. "3 targets!" A voice outside called. "The woman and the kids. Orders are clear." Rook's jaw tightened. "Over my dead body," he muttered. He pointed to the back door. "Blaze, take the girls to the bikes." "I'll hold them off." Elara grabbed his sleeve. "No, you don't know what they do to people they catch." Rook met her gaze. "Then I'll make sure they never get the chance." Outside, the snow flared white. Gunfire cracked the silence. The first bullet tore through the cabin window, scattering shards into the firelight. Rook hit the floor, dragging Elara down beside him. Blaze shoved a table against the door, while 2 other bikers took position behind stacked firewood. The girls hid under a wool blanket, trembling. 2 on the left, 1 behind the truck. Blaze barked. Rook peeked outside. Silhouettes moved between the trees, tactical, precise. Whoever they weren't amateurs. Elara pressed her hand over Rook's arm. "They used to come at night like this," she whispered. "In Bosnia. Same signals, same pattern." He saw the fear in her eyes, not for herself but for the children. "Stay with the girls," he said. Rook stepped out into the storm, leather jacket whipping in the wind. His boots crunched the snow just as a figure raised his rifle. Rook fired first, a single echoing shot that sent the man spinning into the drift. The blizzard swallowed the scream whole. As gunfire echoed, Elara's mind slid backward. The smell of snow became damp concrete. The cabin walls turned to rusted steel. She was back in the camp, the cage where they'd kept her. The sound of chains, scraping across stone, still lived inside her. A man's voice haunted the memory. "Medic, you fix our men, or the next girl screams." She had fixed them. Not to obey, to survive. Every stitch, every bandage, every whispered prayer was rebellion disguised as compliance. She remembered one night, a young soldier barely breathing, his dog tag engraved M. Hale. She had used the last morphine on him, knowing they'd beat her for it. "Don't let this be for nothing," she'd told him. Now in the cabin, she clutched her burned wrist and gasped back to the present. Outside, Rook's silhouette flashed in the lightning. She whispered to herself, "I kept my promise, Mason. He's here because of you." Rook dove behind a log pile, reloading. "Blaze, cover left flank!" he shouted. The bikers moved like clockwork. Years of fights in bars and back alleys had forged instincts sharper than training. A mercenary lunged from behind a tree. Rook caught him mid-charge, slamming his shoulder into the man's chest. Snow sprayed as they fell. The mercenary's mask slipped, revealing a scar across his cheek, a brand. Elara saw it through the window and froze. That mark. They branded prisoners with it. The man snarled, "We finish what we started." Rook's punch silenced him. They dragged the bodies to the tree line, knowing more would come. Blaze's voice cracked through the radio. "We can't hold this long, brother." Rook looked at the girls huddled inside. "We're not running. Not while she's still standing." Elara limped to the door, clutching her medic bag. "Then let me help. I've treated worse under fire." Rook almost smiled. "That's the spirit I remember." Between bursts of wind, Elara patched Blaze's shoulder, a graze from a lucky shot. Her hands moved fast, steady, every gesture pure instinct. The bikers watched in silence, respect replacing doubt. Rook noticed the badge again, pinned to her torn coat. UN Field Medic Corps, he murmured. But why'd you hide it? Elara's gaze hardened. Because after the war, no one wanted to hear what happened in those camps. I came here to disappear. Rook shook his head. You saved lives. You don't disappear. People like you keep the world from falling apart. Outside, the engines started again. The mercenaries were regrouping. Elara tightened the bandage and met his eyes. Then let's stop them from taking anyone else. Rook nodded, handing her a pistol. You ever use one of these? She exhaled. Only when I have to. A sudden crash split the cabin door. Smoke grenades rolled in. The girls screamed as white mist filled the room. Rook's vision blurred. The gas burned his throat as figures burst through the haze. He swung wildly, tackling one attacker before being dragged backward. Hands grabbed Elara, pulling her toward the doorway. She kicked, biting down hard on a glove until she tasted blood. Leave her, Rook roared, but a rifle butt smashed across his face. Through the chaos, the eldest girl, Mara, crawled toward the radio, remembering what Rook had told her. Red button means help. She slammed it. The distress signal pinged across every biker frequency within 50 miles. Outside, the blizzard swallowed everything. When Rook came to, Elara and the girls were gone. Only the echo of engines retreating into the night remained. He staggered to his feet, blood dripping onto snow. Blaze groaned beside him. They took him. Rook's jaw set. Yeah, but they just made a mistake. He picked up Elara's fallen badge, brushing off the snow. She survived once. We'll make damn sure she survives again. By dawn, the storm had thinned to a ghostly fog. Rook stood beside his Harley, blood crusted on his cheek. The radio crackled, static, then a familiar growl. Rook, you call in trouble again. It was Mason Hale, the brother Elara had once saved. She's alive, Mason, but they took her, and the kids. Silence. Then Mason's voice hardened. Send the coordinates. Within minutes, engines roared through the valleys. Dozens of bikers appeared, headlights cutting through mist like a moving constellation. They rode as one, a wall of leather, loyalty, and vengeance. Rook led them down the mountain trail, following the tire marks through the snow. Every turn felt like chasing a ghost. When they finally reached the ravine, smoke curled from an old radio tower, the mercenaries' base. Rook looked at Mason. You ready to return the favor? Mason loaded his shotgun. I've been waiting 20 years to thank that woman. The Hells Angels rolled forward, engines growling like thunder reborn. Elara woke in darkness. Her hands were zip-tied, her breath clouding in the cold air. The floor was concrete, familiar, too familiar. A flashlight snapped on. Welcome back, Dr. Myles, a voice sneered. The accent was European, the face older but recognizable. Colonel Voss, the camp commander. His scar ran from ear to jaw like a stitched memory. You, she whispered. You should be dead. He laughed, circling her. You left me in that fire. I lost everything, except the memory of your screams. Elara's pulse thundered. You tortured children, she spat. You called it cleansing? He crouched, lifting her chin with a knife. Tonight we finish the story. She stared back, unflinching. You still don't understand, do you? I already finished it when I lived. Outside, the faint rumble of engines echoed closer. Voss frowned. What's that noise? Elara smiled, defiant despite the pain. Sounds like the past catching up to you. The radio tower loomed like a skeleton in the fog. Rook and Mason crouched behind an old generator, studying the guards through binoculars. 2 at the gate, 3 near the truck, 1 sniper, Mason muttered. Rook nodded. We go loud on my mark. The signal flared. Engines roared to life, floodlights cut through the haze. Dozens of Hells Angels stormed the compound, a tidal wave of fury and redemption. Bullets cracked through the air. Sparks danced off steel. Rook charged forward, shoulder-checking a guard into a wall. Blaze grabbed another and threw him into the snow. Inside, Elara heard the chaos, heart racing. She twisted her wrists until the zip tie bit through skin, then snapped it against a nail in the wall. Free at last, she grabbed a broken metal rod, the only weapon within reach. When Voss burst in furious, she stood ready. "Still fighting, medic?" he mocked. Elara met his gaze. "Still breathing, Colonel?" Outside, the bikers breached the doors. The final reckoning had begun. The firefight tore through the compound. Bullets clanged off steel beams as Rook and Mason advanced. They reached the basement where muffled cries echoed. Rook kicked down the door. The three girls huddled behind crates. Relief surged through him. "You're safe now," he whispered. Mara clung to his jacket. They took Mama upstairs. Rook handed her his leather patch, the angel wing insignia. "Keep this safe. It means family." Upstairs, Elara and Voss circled each other like shadows. She swung the metal rod. He blocked it, grabbing her wrist. "You think pain makes you strong?" he hissed. "No," she said, wrenching free. "Enduring it does." He lunged, and she drove the rod through the floorboards, breaking his footing. He crashed backward, the rod slipping from her hands. Voss reached for his gun, but a shotgun blast echoed. Mason stood in the doorway, smoke rising from the barrel. "For Bosnia," he said quietly. The building burned from the inside out. Snowflakes hissed as they hit the flames. The angels led Elara and the girls outside, wrapping them in blankets. Mason limped beside her, his face streaked with soot. "Thought I'd never see you again," he said. Elara managed a weak smile. "You weren't supposed to." Rook knelt, handing her the medic badge. "Looks like you earned it twice." She closed her fingers around it, trembling. The fire roared behind them, devouring years of nightmares. The girls pressed close to their mother. "Mama, are the bad men gone?" Elara looked at the horizon, dawn breaking through storm clouds. "They're gone, sweetheart." "They can't hurt anyone now." Mason lit a cigarette, exhaling toward the rising light. "So what now?" Rook gazed at the smoke curling skyward. "Now we ride. For her, for them, for every soul that made it out alive." The engine started again, not as noise, but as prayer. Hours later, the storm calmed into soft flakes that looked almost merciful. The convoy rolled slowly down the mountain, headlights dim, engines steady. Elara sat in the van's front seat beside Rook, wrapped in a blanket, the badge clutched tight in her hands. Her girls slept in the back, their cheeks pink from the heat vents. Rook glanced at her. "You could have given up, you know." She shook her head. "I've given up before." "It never ends well," he smiled faintly. "You remind me of the road itself, scarred, but still carrying everyone." Behind them, Mason's bike followed like a silent guardian. When the town lights of Ravenridge appeared, Elara exhaled for the first time in days. The world looked ordinary again, gas stations, street lamps, frost on windows, but she knew everything had changed. For the first time since the war, she wasn't running. She was heading somewhere worth arriving. At the clubhouse, the bikers lined up as Rook helped Elara inside. No music, no noise, just reverence. Mason stepped forward, holding a leather cut. On the back, the angel wing patch glowed under the hanging light. He placed it on the table. "You saved our brother once. You saved his brothers tonight. That makes you one of us." Elara looked around, men who'd fought, lost, rebuilt. She felt the weight of belonging settle on her shoulders. "I was never part of any tribe," she murmured. "But maybe. I was waiting for one like this." Rook nodded. "Once you ride with the angels, you don't ride alone, even if it's in spirit." He pointed to her daughters, now eating soup near the fire. "They'll grow up knowing what loyalty looks like." Elara smiled softly. "Then they'll grow up strong." The room fell silent, not in mourning, but in respect for a woman whose war never broke her. Days later, Elara returned to the cabin ruins. The snow had melted just enough to expose the scorched outline of the floorboards. She knelt, brushing ashes away, until she found what she was looking for, a metal box. Half buried, inside were letters she'd written years ago but never mailed, messages to her fallen comrades, each one a promise to live for them. She placed the newest badge beside the box and whispered, "You kept me alive longer than you'll ever know." Footsteps approached. Rook stood behind her, holding a fresh patch. "The thought you might want a cleaner one," he said.
She smiled.
"No, I like the ashes on this one. It tells the truth," he nodded, understanding. "Your story won't fade, Elara." She looked at the horizon, sun glinting off snow. "Stories don't die," she said softly. "They ride forward." And somewhere in that wind, the engines answered. Spring came slow to Ravenridge. On the first warm morning, the Hells Angels gathered again, this time not for war, but for remembrance. Elara, now stronger, mounted behind Rook, her daughters bundled safely in the chase van. They rode through the valleys that had once been battlefield and blizzard alike. Children waved from porches. Old veterans saluted as they passed. It wasn't noise or spectacle. It was peace carried on 200 engines. Mason rode ahead with a flag bearing a single white cross for those who never made it home. When they reached the ridge, the group stopped. Elara stepped off the bike, closed her eyes, and let the wind lift her hair. No screams, no sirens, just silence, finally kind, she whispered. "This is what freedom sounds like." Rook placed a gloved hand on her shoulder. "And this time, it's yours." They stood together, watching the sun melt the last of the snow. Years later, locals still told the story, how 3 girls found the angels in a storm and how their mother saved them all. At the Ravenridge diner, a framed photo hung above the counter. Elara Myles in her leather jacket, smiling beneath the words, "Strength is quiet." Her daughters, grown, ran a shelter for displaced families, their emblem a pair of silver wings. Every spring, bikers rode from across the country to deliver supplies, keeping her promise alive. Rook still led the convoy, his hair grey, his voice steady. When asked why they kept coming back, he'd smile. "Because once an angel walked through hell and taught us how to ride out of it." The engines would thunder again, fading into distance like a hymn. And somewhere in that echo, Elara's spirit rode with them, unbroken, eternal, and free. If this story touched your heart, remember, kindness and courage can outlast any storm. Subscribe, like, and tap the bell to keep these true spirit stories alive. Because every act of mercy creates another angel on the road.